Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's three prakim Rambam, the Hilchoi Shvisas Aser, the laws of resting on the 10th, meaning on the 10th of Tishrei, which means the laws of Yom Kippur. Let us begin with the header. Hilchoi Shvisas Aser. Yesh b'chlalan arba mitzvahs, shtei mitzvahs aseh, and ushtei mitzvahs lois aseh, and v'zeu pratan. Number one, in the positive, lish boys boy mimalacha, to rest. And number two, shaloi lasos boy malacha, not to do work. Similarly, number three, in the positive, to fast, lisanis boy. And number four, shaloi lechel v'lishtois boy, not to eat and to drink. Ubiur kol hamitzvahs elu b'prakim elu. Okay, today's three chapters are prakim Aleph, Beis, and Gimel. And let us start with Perek Rishon, with Perek Aleph. The first chapter will tell us about the prohibition of working, or the obligation of resting from work, the obligation of afflicting ourselves, and the exceptions when it comes to eating, drinking by a choila sheyesh by sakana on Yom Kippur, that they are actually obligated to eat. This chapter has 7 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph. It says that Rambam mitzvahs aseh lishbois b'melacha be'eser l'chodesh hashvi, quoting a pasuk in Parshas Emor, Shabbos Shabbosayin hu lochem, and v'chol ha'oisa b'melacha is negating, is violating, is being mevatel mitzvahs aseh, and also avad aloisas. Where do we have the lav? Shenemar in Parshas Pinchas ube'asoid, etc. V'goymer. No, the 10th of the month of Tishrei, kol malacha loisasu. Now, mahu chayev al asiyas malacha b'gem zeh. So, the punishment is of kares. And if a person does the malacha, as is the klal, that any lav for which you chayev b'meizit kares, you chayev b'chatos, you chayev b'shoigeg chatos kavua. Chatos kavua, meaning that no matter what your financial status is, you will always bring the same carbon. Halacha base. Kol malacha shechayev, and also the b'Shabbos skila. What is defined as a malacha? So now that we learned the entire Shabbos, everything for which one will be chayev on Shabbos skila, for that chayev, and also doing that same activity on the 10th, meaning on Yom Kippur, you'll be chayev kares. And similarly, v'chol shechayev, and all of carbon chatos on Shabbos also will be chayav and alor carbon chatos b'yom kippurim, and v'chol dover she'also lasoyse b'Shabbos, even though it's not a biblical malacha, also lasoyse b'yom kippurim. Whether it is shvus, whether it is pasuk in Yeshaya, whether it is muktzah, and ve'im also maken oise makas mardus, and here the punishment is like Shabbos, kederach shemaken oise ala Shabbos. V'chol she'also l'taltal b'Shabbos, also l'taltal b'yom kippurim. Anything that is forbidden to be said on Shabbos, or to do a lechat chilam Shabbos, in other words, there is a klal Shabbos ella, only for the punishment of b'mezid, that a zodoin malacha b'Shabbos, the punishment is skila, and a zodoin malacha in Yom Kippur, the punishment is kares. Everything else is the same. That's the klal. And as we have a klal concerning a klal, that there's always an exception to the klal. What is going to be the exception? That it's allowed to trim a vegetable, as we'll explain in a moment. This is not something that's also midoraisa, but it's something that may not be done on Shabbos, but yes, should be done on Yom Kippur, or maybe done on Yom Kippur, but only min mincha ulamayla. Mincha here means mincha ketana. Mincha ketana is from 3:30 p.m. Sha'is manayos. And the Rambam defines umahu hakinuf. What's the shrimin? That sheyased es ha'olim. So you are allowed to remove the olim that are mefupashois, the leaves that are wilted, and v'yikatzeit sashad v'yisakenois elachila, and you can cut the rest and prepare it to be eaten. Similarly, it's not only concerning vegetables. The same concept that mefatzin be'egoizim, you can crack open the nuts. Umefaranim b'rimonim, you can open up the pomegranates, all from mincha maila. And even though that on Shabbos this should not be done, if you're not eating immediately, right? Remember, only prior to eating. Here you're doing it hours before you are eating. Why? Gewaldig. In other words, on Yom Kippur, people are afflicting themselves, which also includes the Isur Achila. And therefore, people would like to know that they can eat right after Yom Kippur. These are preparations of food that will enable you to eat it right after the fast is over, knowing that I don't have to wait for after the fast to start preparing. Says the Rambam, wow, amazing. Don't forget, guys, that because you're taking away the bad from the good, just explaining what you're doing over here. This is not Peter Doiraisa, but it's something that is also the Rabbanan. So first of all, there was a heter for Yom Kippur. When it's Yom Kippur on Shabbos, don't do it. And furthermore, the Rambam says, whether they live in Shinar, which is in Bavel, or B'maidav, or in the West, whatever the Rambam referred to as the West, that you should never do it on any fast day, no matter when it falls out. And therefore, we come back to the real klal that we said at the end of Halacha Beis, that Ein Bein. The only difference is the punishment for Zudoin. Hilcha Shvisas Asar, Peire Krisha in Halacha Dalet. Says the Rambam, it's Vasasei Acheres Yesh B'Yom Kippurim. You know, it's other than the positive commandment of resting, of Shvisa from Halacha, there's another positive commandment, Vihi, to rest from eating and drinking. It's Gavaldik. That's Asay. The negative is to eat. The mitzvah saseh is to rest from eating and to drinking. As it says in Parshas Achimois, ta'anu es nafshei sechem, to afflict your nefesh, b'pnei Yashmuel lamdu, inu shuhu lenefesh. What affliction is there to the nefesh? That's tzoyim, which is quite amazing. What connects Yakir, the guf and the nefesh? Food. So when you don't eat, it's not only an inui to your body, it's an inui to your nefesh. And I'll tell you even deeper, al pi chasidus, that how does the taka work? How does food connect the body and the soul? The food is something gashmi. The food should give nutrients, begashmi, but it connects the nefesh with the body also. Because in the food, right? That in the food there's also gewaldige, lofty sparks of oiros of the world of Toyu. So you're also giving nutrients to your neshama. In other words, any memutza hamachaber has to have both the quality of the two items that you're being machaber. It's not how can you be machaber. If you're connecting A and B, if you're connecting, you have to have a shaykhis to A and a shaykhis to B. And there are stories that there were Yidden, especially after the Zman of the Holy Baal Shem Tov, who enacted that the way of serving God beyond the letter of the law should no longer be through Sigufim and Taines, even though you have exceptions, that there was a Yid that undertook to do tremendous amounts of fast days. And at some point, that person started to have Sveikas and Amunah. And not only were they getting closer to God, they began to have things that were foreign to them. So they went to a tzaddik, and the tzaddik told him that since there are sparks of holiness in food, and you abstain from eating so long, you disconnected yourself from something holy. Go back to eat like a kedarach kol ha'adam, and you'll get your emunah back. Coming back, it's called the inui hanefesh. Now, 1 second, fasting on Yom Kippur is an obligation that will never end, even after Mashiach will come. We're not talking about keeping the mitzvahs. We're speaking about going beyond the letter. Today, beyond the letter is not loisu haderach, at least for the most of the people. Cholat some boy. And also in the negative, and Father Aloisasa. Where's the love? It says, now hold on. The Plato never says thou shalt not. But if God is giving a punishment for eating and drinking, a punishment, that means that God is saying don't. That we're not allowed to eat. And now, since the punishment bizodin is kares, let's go back to the cloud. It's a lav sheyesh by kares. So kol oicha oyashoyse by b'shoigig is chayiv korban chatos kavuam. Halachei kein lamde b'pnei Shmuel she'asur that inui doesn't only mean eating and drinking. That's befedish. That's clearly right. Ta'anus nafshoy seichem. Now we're going to say that it's broader. That we're not allowed to bathe. We're not allowed to anoint. We're not allowed linoy lesa sandal means leather shoes or sandals. Or live to have marital relations. And also, mitzvah lishbois mikol elu, just like eating and drinking is not only a negative, don't eat. When you refrain from, the act of refraining is a positive commandment. The act of refraining from all of these is also a mitzvah. Why? Where do we see that? Because the Torah refers to Yom Kippurim as Shabbos Shabbosim. What's the pshat Shabbos Shabbosim? Double Shabbos le'inyan malacha. Shabbosim gavaldik le'yonim elu. However, yes, we learned in Halacha Daled based on the pasuk in Emoir Dichol Hanefesh Asher Loi Suuna the Nichrasa. There is a kaddish, but that's only kaddish for eating or drinking. And therefore, Bishoygig a karben Ella Ala Chiyoshisiyabulvad Avalum Rochatz Oisach Oinol. Then the punishment will only be a rabbinic. Makanoisi Makas Mardus Halachavo. Is not only during the daytime of Yom Kippur, but it's bein bayom, bein balayla, the night going in, the night prior, like Shabbos. Friday night you begin biblically. All of the inuyim begins not only by day, bein bayom, bein balayla, and more than that. Zakter Rambam, don't even think it begins with the stars coming out. When both B'Knisasai and B'Tziyasai Shenema, Pasuk in Emor, Ve'inisim es nafshesechem, doesn't say but in the 10th Be'eser. It says B'Tisha. It says B'Tisha lachodesh bo'erev me'erev aderev. So Takan Chazal, you have different approaches. One approach is that Kol ha'oichel v'shoyse b'tshi ma'ala olav ha'kosov ke'ilu isana. That's one pshat. But here we're learning another pshat, that the fast begins on the 9th. It begins on the 9th, not the whole 9th. But your Moisev Mechoil ala Kodesh, Kolemer Haskell Lotzom Lisanois, Me'erev Tisha. Not from the beginning of Erev, which is the 9th, but from Samach Lasiri, from the time that's close to Chen Vayitzion. More than that, it's not only in the beginning, but also Vayitzion. That what? Shoya Bi Inuyo Ma'at Min Leili Achados Samach Lasiri. What's the remes for that? Because it says Me'erev Aderev. Me'erev Aderev is comparing, just like the Erev prior. The fast begins prior to the Eser LaChodesh. Ad Erev goes after the 10th, goes into the 11th. So this is a mitzvah of the Torah. Guys, it's a biblical obligation, but that's hinted to in the Torah. And now we're going to learn a very big klal, which is much broader than Yom Kippur. When do we say, that's a good kasha, when do we say, you know what, Hanach lem li Yisrael, better for them to be shoygig in Ba'al Yom Ezidu? When do we say, no, God said don't do it, let them know they can't do it, go after them, and they'll be amazed, let them be punished? Many people erroneously think, by the Rabbanan say Hanach, by the Oraisas you say, go after them. Ein Chachma, ve'ein Tfuna, ve'ein Das, neged Hashem. It's not true. Even by a Doiraisa, sometimes we say this, sometimes we say that. Now we're going to learn the nafkamina between a Doiraisa that's mefurish versus a Doiraisa that's only merumas. In other words, the adding bichnisasoi ubitziyasoi is an emes. Mitisha mechodesh me'erev ba'erev. You can, like we just said, there's other ways of interpreting it in Chazal. So therefore, says that Rambam Halacha Zayin, that nashim she'oichlis v'shoises at shechashecha. When women who are not aware of this halacha, if they eat, they don't eat on Yom Kippur, but they eat all the way until dark, they're not moisif. That there is a mitzvah. Guys, that's a mitzvah from the Torah. Says that Rambam. Why? Because here the presumption is that even if they will find out, they'll still do it. Everyone is doing it. Now, I guess, if we would have an ability of putting someone in everyone's house and reminding everyone not to eat, b'shas ma'isa, then it would work. We don't have that ability. So what are we going to do? We're going to preach about it. We're going to speak about it in the Beis Medrash. We're going to notify the woman in the Beis Yaakov. It's not going to be good enough. They're going to do it anyways. And therefore we say, let them be. It's better for them to be shoig again. Guideline is that this is something. It just said this is something that's only merumas. It's not written explicit. That's the meaning. V'chein kol hadoimim. What's v'chein kol hadoimim? Any mitzvah, midoiraisa, that is only based on a remes. And I'll tell you more, the remes of Mitisha LaChodesh Be'erev, in Chazal, there's another interpretation. Chazal say that begin on the 9th, meaning eat on the 9th. Masha Enkein, for example, when something is not merumas, when something is clear, which is fasting on the 10th. If a person doesn't know that you can't fast on Yom Kippur, we're not going to say, Hanach lahem, don't tell them. Tell them. And if they're going to violate it, they'll be punished. Merumas, not merumas. Hinted to, only hinted to, or written explicitly. That's the big klal gadol. Okay. However, today's second chapter, continuing, all 3 chapters are about Yom Kippur, and that's the end of the whole Hilchos Yom Kippur in the Rambam, because the Rambam already said it's mamish like Shabbos. The only difference is Zodain by Shabbos Skila, Zodain Yom Kippur Kares, which is the end of the world, but that's the only difference. Everything else is the same. So now what do we have to do? So what do we have b'noisav? Inui. So now we have to learn more about Inui. And this chapter will focus not on the other Inuyim. This chapter is only about the Isur of eating and drinking. This has to be further defined. This chapter has 11 halachas, beginning with halacha al. Says the Rambam. But let's define food. Food means foods that are fit for human consumption. Not foods that are kosher, as we'll see in a moment. If a person, God forbid, eats chazer treif, chazer, they'll be chayiv kares for eating, because it's roi lachila, roi not halachically roi, practically roi. But here, something unique. Normally, whenever there's something connected to eating, how do you define eating? Quantity of eating normally is a kazayas. Not so on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, it's lakula. The size, now, chatzi shir asam ra'pleira. You can't eat anything unless you're sick. But to be punished, it's kikoiseves hagasom. Koiseves hagasom means a large, ripe date. Now, we learned about this in the Gemara. The Rambam holds it's a little bit less than a kabetz. Let's read it inside. Sheipachos mikabetz b'ma'at. A lot bigger than a kazayis. Just like many people think that a kazayis is very, very, very big, even though an olive is very little, they also hold that eggs are even bigger. So however they are with the kazayis, they are with the kabetz. That's the shir. Harei zechai. Another detail. V'chol ha'acholim etztarfim l'shir zeh. That's already a chumrah. Not if I ate a koseves hagasa of one type. If it's food, it combines. Similarly, the Rambam holds, same concept, that has to be royal l'shis adam, not kosher, but something that's meant to be consumed as a liquid by the humankind. What's the quantity? Normally, the quantity is a revius, just to know. Here, we're being machmir. Here, it's going to be a lesser quantity, to be chayv the punishment. Malay lugmav means the size of one cheek of the drinker. And here, it's not everyone the same. Koisevas hagasa is for oig malachabashon. Koisevas hagasa is for a little person. And that's the klal, that since the Torah speaks about inui, if you eat less than a koisevas hagasa food, you're not sated. So you're still afflicted. When did I break the affliction? When I'm satisfied. For that, everyone needs the same amount. Chazal know that. By drinking, everyone according to their own size. And the Rambam says, liquid that when you put it in your mouth, if you were to put it in one of the sides of your cheek, the cheek will appear to be full. Now, Bashir Zeb Adam Bainani is less than a revius. By Oig Malachabasha, it could be it's many gallons, who knows, according to the sizes that 30 amas hits his ankle. But normally it's less than a revius. But you know what says the Rambam? Eating and drinking are not mitzdarfen l'shir echad. And this we know with the shiurim today, that if a person is a chayla and they have to break their fast, that especially on Yom Kippur, according to most, only on Yom Kippur, we say, okay, have in the amount less than the shir. And we know, we review this halacha every year, that they don't combine. That's a leniency. It's, an ounce, a shot glass, we're very that size, and then wait 11 minutes or 12 minutes. That's the longest sheet of achilas paras. We'll get to that in a moment, of eating, but you can have another amount of drinking. Halacha beis. And what is the worst isurim? Pigul and noiser and tevel and avelos and trefes v'chelu v'dam. Since hoyel v'achal acholam aroyim lo adam, ari zachayiv koris, because he ate on Yom Kippur. Halacha gimel. If a person ate less than that amount, so even though we said there's a shir, which means you won't be chayv kares, Rambam l'shitosai, the Rambam paskins like Rabbi Yochanan, not like Rish Lakish. The Rambam paskins that chatzi shir is also minat Torah. Chatzi shir doesn't mean half. Chatzi shir means any amount of less. Afa pishu also minat Torah b'chatzi shir, but en chayav an el al shir. But don't think that since you're not chayav punishment from the Torah, the Chachamim will turn no. You'll be chayav makas mardus. V'hoichal l'shos chatzi shir makas mardus. Halacha dal. Achal ma'at b'chazav achal. These are halachas that are not only concerning Yom Kippur, but let's say we're learning about Yom Kippur. So that's the simple rule. When do you combine a nibble, a bite, a nash, and the next? Im yesh, from the beginning of the first achila rishon until the end of the final eating. If you have kedei achila shalosh beitzim, the Rambam holds that a loaf of bread is comprised out of 6. That's the Rambam's psak. And therefore, half tras is 3 eggs, right? You have actually in Shulchan Aruch, you have other opinions that paskin in the Shulchan Aruch. No, that a loaf of bread is 4 eggs, half a loaf of bread is 8, half is 4. Just to know practically, you have, if I'm not mistaken, the most chamor dik is up to 2 minutes. We don't even follow that. Then the longest, I'm personally afraid to say for Yom Kippur, but it's a lot, 11 minutes or something like that, 12 minutes, some sefer. We don't go so quick to that long shir. But let's go to the words of Chazal. The time that it takes you to eat 3 eggs, for me, Yakir, I can have 3 eggs, Mustam, in 20 seconds, maybe 21 seconds. Like, I don't get these shiurim. So, it's a very long time. Like, who needs 12 minutes to eat 3 eggs? Think about it. It's
Maybe
not
time takes.
Huh?
Time it takes to peel it.
But then no, something else. Okay, say that. So things, the eggs were larger. They were very, very large. They were bigger than me. Yeah. Okay, good. Even an apple. 21 seconds of guzme, but 12 minutes, I don't get that. 12 minutes, I can have the whole 2 steaks. All right, v'im la, v'im it similarly, shasa ma'at v'chazar, same concept. But interesting, guys, even though the shir, according to the Rambam, is molay lugmov, but the hitztarfus yakir is not molay lugmov, is a revis. The combination is a revis. And other places can say that even by liquid, the combination is to eat pras. Im yesh mitchila shesiyah reshoina ad soif shesiyah achroni kedei shesiyah revis, then it's start from the shir. Vim lav, vim mitztarfin. And I want you to know that many people today paskin not like this. They paskin that the shir of hitztarfus, of drinking, is like eating. If they're going to say that this time of the 3 eggs, let's say, is 4 minutes or 6 minutes, they'll apply the same amount for drink. Because you should know that the shir of drinking a revis has to be much less. A revis is 3 ounces. To me, it sounds like 2 seconds. No. Okay, weiter. Halacha, we got to move. Halacha.
The discussion is not about
No. Yakir is saying a good svarim. That when do we apply this nowadays? When do we apply that? Someone is a chaylam, at least they'll fast biblically. Maybe a sick person. Part of the illness is that it takes them longer to eat. Very good. Halacha. Here, I don't know why you need examples, but the Rambam gives examples like asavim hamarim, bitter herbs, oy surafim have ushim, foul types of syrups. Surafim is a syrup, sap. Oy shishasa mashkin. That's interesting. This is a food syrup. Oy shishasa mashkin sheinu ro'oyim. You know what's not ro'oyim? See, it is fish brine. That's the yellow gefilte fish guk that you get in all of these cans. The Rambam already had it then. I'm just kidding. They had the fish brine. They would have it with something else, but you can't drink it. Oy murias is pickled brine. Pickled brine, not the pickle. In other words, the juice, when you make a pickle, the juice in there. No. When you make pickles, so the liquid in which you make the pickles, you drink a l'chaim and then you drink that. Go try that. Oy chaim etzchai, undiluted vinegar. Here, but like we learned before, you're going to get makas mardus. Now, 1 second. What happens if you drink chametz, vinegar, but it's mixed with water? Ooh, that's drinkable. Akoisas pilpulin, if you chew dried peppers, or you chew dried ginger, zangabil, yavish, v'chayotz ben potter. But if you're going to have normal ginger, ratov means, you way to buy them now, then chayev. Another thing, if you have the leaves of the vines, you'll be potter. But it's probably like wood, it's not food. But if you have lulav gefanim, buds of vines, guys, buds of vines means that I'm able to find when the leaves begin to bud out, they're so soft that it's considered edible. Chayev. Once it stays on the tree, after it emerged, Yakir, for more than a couple of days, it becomes already a part of the eights. But if it just came out between Hashanah and Yom Kippur, then it's so soft, it's considered food. Today, the minig is b'chlal, you go to the fancy restaurants, you pay a few $100s for leaves. These are the leaves that are edible. Yasser al zeh, then ke'etzim. A lot about food for all the people here. I have Mayan over here, the greatest chefs, and you have Levan over here. If you have roast meat and salt, here's the kasha: do you allow Yakir the salt to combine to the share? The shir is a kesevas hagasa. What happens if you have meat almost that size with the salt? The salt is included. The brine, the fish brine that you put on the vegetables, nebach. Imagine fish brine, mitztaref. Why? Because it's called shemachshirei ha'oichel, a condiment, a machshir, which is mixed with the oichel, becomes oichel. I'll give you a good example in Al Shabbos. What did we learn? That you're not allowed to extract liquid from solids, the farek, but we know that we can squeeze the lemon straight into a salad because it's liquid. It's not liquid. It's going straight into food. So you cannot extract liquid from salad, but salad from salad, I can cut an apple in half. Very good. Another thing. Person is very satisfied. If a person this eating when you're full and this eating when you're so full, that eating is disgusting. That eating is not called eating. Even though the food that you're eating is not objectively disgusting. No. This extra food that you ate, for someone that's hungry, is gewaldige food. But if someone is satisfied, that's not called roi. Halacha 8. Here we go, the final topic of the chapter. And he asked to eat on Yom Kippur. Says the Rambam, this is the big klal, guys. People say we're very lenient. Let me frame it. We're very machmir when it comes to pikuach nefesh. We're very machmir when it comes to pikuach nefesh. So afalpi that all of the expert doctors are saying he doesn't need. If the principal says, Chevre, I need food, until when? Until he says, Dayi. But if the choyle says, I don't need, then we'll hold on. Then we ask the doctor. The doctor says he needs weiter machil al piv. For this you need to have a roifa bucket. A doctor from Kaiser or above. Roifa echad amar tzarich. The machlekes and roifim. The achar tzarich. You know what you do? If it's 50-50, you're machmer for pikuach nefesh. You have to eat. If the patient says I don't need, and there's a machlekes of doctors, if the roiv of the doctors say ein tzarech, then you won't give it. But all of that is because whenever the guy says I need machilin oisoi, and they're all bikiyim. It's 50-50. Again, we go l'chumra for life, which turns out to be, in the context of Yom Kippur, people can frame it, you are lenient. Halacha 9. Now another rule. If a woman who's pregnant smelled of food and she has a taiva to eat it, Chazal understand that if she will refrain from eating, it puts her fetus into some sort of danger. And Rambam is quoting a Eitzah Toiva that was given by Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, right? Yuma Pei Gimel. That first, Loichesh and Laba Ozna, you whisper in her ear. That it's Yom Kippur. Why do you have to whisper? Maybe you're trying to talk to the fetus. This is a psychological thing. You have to know what whispering does. The rule is the stronger you talk, the less effective you are. Because the listener who hears someone speaking loud puts up a wall. That's B'chal life. The more force you exert, the much less effective you are. Betnimius. The Chetzonius, if you want to live in the Chetzoniistic world, I won. I'm stronger. Here it's the opposite. You whisper, so the person really, when you whisper to a person, the listener really listens. So I guess. Guys, remember that. Whenever you have to lift your voice, you're guaranteeing that the other party will not listen. The premius, which is what we really need. The chetzonius is nothing. Okay. But if she doesn't calm down, then you have to give her food. Another rule. Call me sha'achazi bulmus. Guys, bulmus is very important. It's a type of hunger that befalls a person, Yakir, very quick. First of all, in other words, what's normal is I'm a bit hungry, I'm hungrier, I'm getting hungrier, that's normal. But there are times that all of a sudden I'm chalishing to eat, and that comes along with dizziness. Specifically, the vision of the person becomes blurry. That person has to eat right away. That's what it means, you're oiru einov.
No, but I have blurry vision every Yom Kippur around 4 or 5 p.m.
That's why you are allowed to eat. And you can even eat nevela shkotzim. You can have all the chazarai. You can look forward to Yom Kippur. I can have all these food, a Big Mac, God forbid. In earnesty, I think that is different. Because today, but once I'm not going to say that so quick. It could be al pi halach. It could be kevan when someone experiences that. But again, bulmos. One of the things that I remember from my teachers in bulmos is that it's pisoin. What I know Yom Kippur is even when people come to dizzy, shkoyach, they were hungry at 11 a.m. Then they got a bit hungry at 2 p.m. And now it's already 5 p.m. So the body was weaned into the hunger. The body can handle it. What the body cannot handle is that aggression. And how do I know it's aggressive? That I was okay. And all of a sudden is takadek. Right? Halachiya. Now let's go. The final topic is age. And the general Mishnah is, you know what the rule is going to be, guys? One big takeaway. Chinuch is not for fasting, even though there is a little bit. Because if you begin to fast prior to your ability, you're going to hurt yourself. And for the rest of your life, you're going to be terrified of fasting. I know such people. That was a mistake. Begin by bar mitzvah. And a little bit before, let's see what the Rambam says. Katan, only ben teisha shana ben asar shanim. Only from then do you begin. And the chinuch is not, God forbid, to fast the whole day. We say, God forbid. The chinuch is add a little bit. Add a little bit. For example, if the person normally eats in the second hour of the day, if we're going to begin at 6 a.m. is the first hour, let's say people eat at 8 o'clock. So they tell them 8 or 9 o'clock. Eat b'shalosh. If he always ate at 9, eat at 10. And even that, by the way, that's not before 9 or 10. And even that, you begin to add. The Rambam also has a unique thing that I've argued like many times in this din. The Rambam holds that when it comes to chinuch of fasting, boys and girls are the same, that the next level is 11 years old. And 11 years old, the Rambam is bein bezocher bein benakeva, which is a chiddush. Like it says, no, 11, a year prior to the nekeva is 11. We pass on that a year prior to the zocher should be 12. The Rambam doesn't say that. Then, if they are able to, misane umashlu medivrei seifrim k'dei lachancha b'mitzvos. And I want you to know, guys, that in the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah says that if a child is weak, they should not make him fast even at this age. And that is the norm nowadays. People are weaker. Now, halacha yudalet, final halacha of this chapter, when you be actually turned bas mitzvah or bar mitzvah, bas shtei mesach shana b'yam echad, And by the male gender, ben shalish es l'shana v'yom echad. And it's not only age, but we have to know that they're obligated because they also begin to physically, bodily mature. Now they are gedolim l'chol mitzvahs u'mishlimim min ha'torah. Aval im lehiviu shtei sa'aros. Since really they are still ketanim, you should know that they only have to finish the fast midivrei sofer. Katan shupachas mi ben teisha ein ma'anan oisa b'yom kippurim shelo yavel l'dei sakana. All right, my friends, let's start today's final chapter, the third chapter of Hilchos Shvisos Asar, the rest, the refrain from work, the refrain from the 5 Inoim, as we're going to go through the other details. That happens on the 10th of Tishrei. So we learned in the second chapter all about eating and drinking. Now we're going to learn about the other Inoim, which is, who remembers, bathing, refraining from putting on leather shoes, refraining from anointing, and refraining from be'ilah, from marital relations. Halacha aleph. Asur lirchatz b'yom kippurim. This isur has nothing to do with the temperature of the water. Bein b'chamin, bein mitzoinen, has nothing to do whether you're bathing your entire body, even if you're only bathing or washing one limb. Even the etzba ketana. Asur lo yishita b'mayim, you may not put it into water. Now, okay, that's the rule. Who does exceptions? V'hamelech and a kala, they can wash their face. Kala kedei shelo tizgana al ba'ala, for her not to look repulsive to her husband. And the melech, who always has to look beautiful. Now, understand the difference. It doesn't say kala kadesha tira biyafya. Doesn't say that. In other words, she should not look not good, and the king for him to look good. Shenemar melech biyafya itechazeno inach. I know that you would think the opposite. It's not that way. Now, hold on. Until when is a kala called a kala? Until 30 days. Now comes the kasha. What after 30 days? After 30 days, we don't care if she looks not nice in the eyes of her husband. And the answer is this important, that when you get to, they didn't date. When you know someone, we go back to the previous, you're not fixed on their chitzonius if you're normal. So it doesn't matter if she didn't wash her face. She'll look beautiful to her husband. The first 30 days, it's like in the first 2 dates. There in the beginning, you only see the chitzonius, so the chitzonius has to look more presentable. We're not saying that people should let themselves go, but that's just a reality, that the more you know a person, the more they look beautiful to you. And if they don't look beautiful, is araya, you don't know them. Halacha beis. A person was soiled, pashut begashmias, with tzoya over tit. Then, even on Yom Kippur, roichetz, mekoim, hatinoifes kedarkoi, ve'eino choishesh. Furthermore, madicha isha yada achas ma'im, she can rinse one hand in water. She's using one hand to feed her child and give him pas libna. What did we learn in Yuma? So the demon, that even though that it's only in later years that we wash negel vaser by the bed, and in the times of Chazal, they would say Elakai Neshama with God's name earlier. But even in the times of Chazal, there is a shade called Shifta, right? That is on your hands right after you wake up. And if you don't wash your hands prior to eating, that can go into the food and it can be mazik. Now it's interesting that, we deal with it today with negel vaser. Here, the Rambam is saying that she can only wash one hand. In other words, if she's using one hand to feed her child, which is they had no cutlery, she took a piece of banana, she gave it to her child, that hand should be washed. And also, how does she wash it? We state that Yakir umadicha. It's very meaningful, the word umadicha. Madicha doesn't mean negel vaser. Doesn't mean atilas yadayim. For this shifta, that's enough. Which is a good thing to know, because for the people that don't know yet to properly wash negel vaser, epis, the washing of the hands, epis it does. Even though he's not mesukin. We're speaking about washing kedarka yakin, not just the hands, washing the body. Wow. However, let me give a big however. I know we're not learning Shulchan Aruch. We know that we don't pass like the Rambam. We all know that. But let me just say that now we dafka don't do that. The big difference between nowadays and in the days of the Rambam is that we're going to learn, we have to chazer, nida, and zava. Women today are not regular. Tefillah kedarka mitzvah applies when you are in the end of your May nida. And women don't even know about this today. Even people that learn all these, we don't apply this right now. So it's not the tefillah kedarka. We make Shivas Nakiyim. There's so many things that we took upon ourselves as Chumras that we forgot the real count. So we're covering all the bases. But this concept of Bismana mitzvah, there's no Bismana now. It's anyways not Bismana. That's the pshat. That's why today no one goes to the mikvah on Yom Kippur, on Yom Kippur night. Halacha Gimel. Now, another thing. Mishara Keri Bisman Hazeh b'Yom Kippurim. When the Rambam means Bisman Hazeh, because when Ezra made 10 takonas. Now, the Ezra made a takona, which we refer to as Tfilas Keri. And there was a time when that was held up, and that was right, Brachas, right? Where else? Many other places, that one was not allowed to daven if they had a seminal emission. During that time, a man would go to the mikvah on Yom Kippur. But now that it became revealed that the Roiv Ha'am never accepted it, and they were mevatel it, even though there is a minig to still do Tfilas Ezra, the minig doesn't override Yom Kippur, the Inoy of washing. So that's the meaning. Whoever sees a Keri B'Zman Hazeh cannot go to the mikvah. On the other hand, you can't leave the semen on your body. So if it's lach, if it's still moist, mikanech b'mapa v'daya. Im yaveshu, or it got dirty. In other words, you can't just wipe it off with a towel. Roichetz mikaymes amalochachim bulvad. Don't go to the mikvah. Here, you're allowed to be roichetz, just like we had in halacha beis. If a person is meluchlach b'tsoya, the meluchlach b'tit. In other words, there's a part of it's not clean, not the tuma. For that to wipe it off. And if you need, use water. Yeah, use water in that location. And you cannot go to the mikvah. Why? That's the Bisman Hazeh. Like this. To say that if you're going to go to the mikvah, you become Torah, that's not true. You're not becoming Torah anyways because of Tumas Meis. But hold on, I know that at least I'll get rid of Tumas Keri. That's only a minig. No, I can daven with Tumas Keri. A minig is only less than a samuter. Remember that. My minig, you marry kids, the other side will have a minig. You're marrying your daughter, they'll have a minig not to pay anything because they're the father of the chasar. Minig. You will have an argument. We find in Gemara that they went to the mikvah. Yes, that was kishetiknu tefillah l'bali kroyin. And there was like a long period of time where people were keeping that halacha. That was the Rabbanan. That was from the Basin of Ezra. But since Ukfar b'Yarnu Shabbat Takanazu, so now Itaka is a minik, beautiful minik, not on Yom Kippur. Halacha 9, halacha Dalet. And then Bachlal, the whole thing. If a person sees a Keri on Yom Kippur and the whole sugyas, and no one is greater than our Rebbe. You have to learn the Rebbe's Torah to see how the Rebbe covers everyone. Yeah, halacha Dalet. Okay, tit. Shuhu lach b'yosef. How do you define mud? What's the issue of mud? If mud is so moist that it's considered water, we learned about mikvahs, about it can. What's mud? The animal can drink from the mud. It's water. I cannot wash myself on water. I want to know whether I can sit on mud. What would be the issue? I'm washing myself. Is it water? Oh, so if it's lach b'yosef, how do you define lach b'yosef? Kadesh yanech adam yodi olav atalav walach luchlius. She'im hidbik oisel yod acheres tidbik walach luchi. That's called tefeach hamanas latfiach. If I touch mud and my hand is so moist, not that just hand is moist, that if this hand touches something else, l'mashal, my other hand also becomes moist. That's called liquid. Now sitting on that means I'm bathing myself, I'm washing myself. Also leishav. And if not, you can sit on it. Next. If I want to cool down, so what am I going to do? I'm going to take a keli. I'm going to fill it up with cold water. I'm not going to touch the water. I'm going to touch the other side of the keli. Am I allowed to do that? In the Rambam's times, kelim were porous. Some water would ooze out. Can't do that. Then, an ordinary utensil. Why? Because some of the water oozes out. And now that I'm goes more. A clay matris is not porous. So maybe I can do it to a clay matris. You can't. You know why you can't? The water is not going to ooze out of the walls, but some of it can splash over. So what could you do? Petas. If petas are cold because they were left not wet, I can use a peta to cool myself off. That was very important. And another thing that he did. See, today we have air conditioning. Just imagine, God forbid, living in Miami without air conditioning. Mamisha, the biggest punishment. So that's what you needed. A person can take a shmata, a towel, a blanket, anything, and he can soak it in mayim, and he can wring it out a little bit. In other words, it was wet. Wait, we're not done yet. I can do something in which Yom Kippur morning, this item will have the cold of the water, but it won't have any moisture of the water. You can take that. Alpana, there are different techniques in which the garment that they would use would only be cold and it would not be wet at all. It would not be tefeach hamanas latviach. Nothing wrong with kohen. We don't say, the Torah says ta'anu. Ta'anu means taka go to Miami and suffer. No, ta'anu means the 5 inoim of Chazal. Eating, drinking, bathing, anointing, leather shoes, and tashmu shamita. That's ta'anu. Cooling yourself off with something that's not wet is not going against the ta'anu. Allah Chavod. If you can ask the oilam in the back to please be quiet, it's being recorded. Thank you. That if someone is doing the mitzvah of receiving their Rebbe, their father, or someone who's great, or even to go learn, we're speaking about on Yom Kippur. But the Beis HaMedrash and the way to go to do this mitzvah is to go through a body of water. Listen to this, my friends. Their kavana is not to get wet. However, normally we say psik reisha. That's your kavana. Not over here. Even if you have to go through with water, wow. And not only can you go there, but you can go back. You can go back through the water. Wow, 1 second, I'm going a mitzvah. How can I go back? Remember the whole sugya, there are 3 times that these are the words in Chazal, that hitidon soifan otu tchilasam. That's one of the cases. Like today at the Hatzalah, because if they won't be allowed to go back, they won't go. And now, furthermore, not only are you allowed to do it for mitzvah, now we're going to broaden the heter. As we learned in Hilchos Shabbos, I am allowed to guard that which I already own. Right? The pasuk in Yeshayahu does not allow me to make new profits, but something that was gifted to me by the Eibishter, I can guard it to not be stolen. So I can go lishmer peirosav. That's not. I watched the Dvar Mitzvah. Here we say Chazal say that Adam Bol Al Mamoina, and he might further. Now, when I go through water, don't extend your hands out from under the fringes of your garments the way you do it on the weekday. No, when people bathe themselves, there are certain body movements that they make to bathe them. Don't do that. Right? Halacha Zayin. Also, now next thing. Also, Linard Minol Vasanad Afil Baragla Achas. You may not put on not a leather shoe, not a leather sandal, not even on 1 foot. The Rambam, by the way, is very machman, as we'll see in a moment. What could you use? You can use besandal shal sha'am or goima, reeds, rushes, cork, v'chayotzebem. You know why? According to the Rambam, because when you walk with such types of soles, you can feel the hardness of the ground. According to the Rambam, the amazing types of rubber or other materials that we have today, l'choida will be problematic. And I know, like the Rebbe's Yom Kippur shoes, those were shoes that they were not. It was not as good as leather. That's the Rambam is very machar. Now, what could you use? You can also wrap a shmat around your foot. It's anything that will not take away the feeling, the uncomfortable feeling of walking on the ground, should not be removed by what you're putting on your feet. That's the Rambam's understanding of the Isur of the Ilas HaSandal. The Koyrach Adam beged al raglois. Why? He's saying, why? Sharei koishi haaretz magia l'ragloi umargish. It feels like you're still barefoot. That's l'Rambam what you need. Rambam is very mach, but this sheet is brought on Shulchan Aruch also, even though most people today are leaning into this. We pass like other understandings. Now, hati loikois. We learned in the previous chapter when it comes to the inui of eating and drinking before 9, and even according to 9, and we spoke out that Ramah says that if a person is weak, wait until you're bar bas mitzvah. Not for this. This is not going to hurt them. That's what you begin with chinuch. The one thing that we will educate them is if there's a danger of being bit by a scorpion, Whatever you need to protect yourself, put on your shoe. Another din. Chaya means a woman who gave birth within 30 days. And here, if she gets chills, she'll get sick. Her body is weak. So she's allowed to wear a sandal. Now, nowadays that you have all these fancy shoes that they give the same warmth, not a problem. But then, no, only the leather was going to for sure make sure she won't get cold. She should wear it. And finally, any chayla, even it's a chayla in the category she'ein by sakana. Let me just say the definition. There's a mechush. We spoke this out on Nechol Shabbos. Chayla she'ein by sakana means that the person is ill, that they go to bed. There's no danger. They don't have an infection, but they can't wing it. They can't push through it. They could, but normally they would go to bed. Halacha 9. Asur lasuch mixes kol gufi kol gufi. The anointing is asur like by bathing even on part of the body. Bein sicha shel tainu, bein sicha she'ena shel tainu. But like we had before by ni'enos hasanel, that if there was a chayla, even it's a chayla she'en by shakana, or even if it's not a chayla, but oishi yesh like katotin beroishay, there's sores on one's scalp. Then sach gedarkei ve'eno choishes. The final halacha yud yesh mekoyim shenahagu lahadlik as anerbali makipurim. Dafke in your bedroom. Why is that? Since there's an isur of tashmish shamita that the Rambam didn't even have to spell out, but he's bringing it in. Why would they light a candle? They said the opposite logic. Because Shema Yira Ishtoi and Vatisa Chen Be'ena v'Yola Dei Tashmish. Now, the Im Cholim go to Shabbos, then Chayoven Hakol Lahadlik. Chol means even in your bedroom. Shadlakas Ner Shabbos Choyven. That's a very big rule. Hadlakas Ner Shabbos is Be'ikid B'Makem Achila, but like we mentioned, making sure the men today, how do men, the chayv is on men and women, the ikid on the woman, also on men, go through your house and make sure all the lights that you want to remain on will remain on. Now on Shabbos, dafka not in the bedroom. But since on Yom Kippur it's also B'Tashma Shamita, if you can't sleep with light, it doesn't mean to put it on. But any light that normally you would like to have on, that's what you should leave on. But you should know there are many other minhagim on Erev Yom Kippur that the Rambam doesn't speak about today. There's a minute to do kaparis with a chicken or with money. There's a minig to ask for to be mafayis or chavenim on Erev Yom Kippurim. There's a minig. It's a minig to go to the mikvah. We don't make a bracha on that. It's very important. And there's also a minig to get malchus. Not real malchus, but malchus also Erev Yom Kippur. And then there's a minig to set the table on Yom Kippur. We're not talking about with food, but to put on the white tablecloth and to wear white garments. And many people wear a kittel. Yidden to be continued.